in the days when I worked as a court clerk. Part of the job involved taking overnight shifts every few months. The civil court duty office, where I'd spend the night, was on the second floor. Below us, on the ground floor, was the police duty office. It was a quiet place at night. Too quiet sometimes. This particular night was in December, the kind of dark Beijing winter where the air cuts sharp in your lungs. The pavements outside had iced over, and the courtyards were muffled in thin snow. Street lamps glowed orange against the frost, and the cold seemed to press in through the windows, humming with the radiators. Nights like that always felt longer, as though time itself was slowed by the cold. I locked up the office, went through some paperwork, and eventually dozed off at around 11 o'clock. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But then, sometime past midnight, I woke up to a sound. Faint at first, almost like a whisper. It took me a moment to realize what I was hearing. It was a woman, crying. It wasn't loud or urgent, more like a soft wail, distant and mournful. I brushed it off, thinking it might be from the women's hospital next door. It wasn't uncommon to hear muffled noises coming from there during the day, and I figured maybe someone was in labour. Satisfied with that explanation, I pulled my coat tighter around me, listened to the radiator ticking, and fell back to sleep. But not for long. The next time I woke, it was abrupt and unsettling. The crying had returned, but this time it was louder and colder, like it belonged to the December air. But she wasn't just crying, she was sobbing, pleading, her voice laced with pain and something deeper, anguish, injustice. I checked my watch. 2:15 a.m. The deadest hour of a winter night. Whatever this was, it didn't feel like my imagination. As I lay there, trying to steady my breath, another sound joined in. A man's voice. Deep, harsh, filled with anger. He wasn't shouting, but his tone was menacing, like he was scolding her. The woman's sobbing grew more pitiful in response, and then came more muffled words from the man. Their voices rose and fell, back and forth, strangely rhythmic. I couldn't tell where it was coming from, but it felt like it was inside the building. That's when I heard the footsteps. They were faint at first, like shoes scraping across an icy pavement outside. But they grew clearer, closer, measured, and my chest tightened. The footsteps stopped outside my door. I held my breath, the silence so heavy it pressed on my ribs. The air in the room felt colder, as though the frost had crept inside. Then, after a stretch of seconds that felt like an hour, the steps moved on. But my sense of relief lasted only a moment. The footsteps returned, stopping, waiting, moving on. Again and again, the same cruel rhythm. Each return was worse than the last, as if they knew I was listening. I dug my nails into my palm, desperate to wake from what I prayed was a dream. But I wasn't dreaming. My breath smoked in the air, my hands stung with cold. This was real. Eventually, the noises began to fade. The steps retreated, distant, and then they were gone. The silence that followed was absolute. Outside in the frozen air, a generator roared to life, and the clock read 3:30 a.m. I didn't sleep again. When dawn finally dragged itself into the city, weak and pale, I all but ran downstairs to the police duty office. The officer on shift looked up as though he'd been expecting me. He hadn't heard a thing, but he didn't look surprised. He told me nearly every officer who'd worked overnight in that building had experienced something similar. The crying, the footsteps, as though they were a rite of passage. Always between 2 and 3:30 a.m. Always the same. He told me some officers even went patrolling the corridors with batons, swearing they'd catch whoever was making the noise. But the hallways were always empty. The footsteps were the worst. They disappeared down one corridor, only to repeat at the opposite end. He told me no one could ever agree what kind of shoes they were. Never quite boots, never heels, just something. And most of it happened on the first and second floors. Never above that. Then he told me the part I can't shake. The officer leaned in close, almost whispering. The place was built in the 1950s, on the site of an old graveyard. I always think about that night. The dark December cold. The woman's cries freezing into the air, the footsteps stopping outside my door. To this day, I don't know if they were real. I only know they froze me in place, left me listening to the silence, like it was alive. And whatever I heard that night will never leave me.